reading, I'm just looking at the pictures. Welcome to the cold, hard truth on sports.
Welcome, everyone, to another week here of the Cold Hard Truth on Sports. I'm your host, Matthew Long. My co-host, Kevin Kress, will be joining us shortly here this week. Is the mic adjusted? All right. And then in the second hour, we will have Rob Parks Jr., former contributor for CMT, or I'm sorry, not CMT, TMZ, my bad. And he's a sports writer for Real Sports 101. So he's joined the show a couple times. So we'll have him on here later on the team. I think he's calling around 10 or so. But we're going to be big into college football this week. Camps are going on. We're starting to see some significant cuts in training camp, whittling their way down to the 53. That 53-man roster. That final 53. So, anyways, college football also. We're a couple weeks out from college football kicking off. Really looking forward to that. I will be in Lincoln for the first Nebraska game this year. Just waiting for those credentials to come in the mail. So, I see a few of you started messaging the show. If you want to do that, you can message me directly at Matt Long Sports on Facebook or on Twitter. We will probably do Facebook Live for the overtime segment tonight, if it's all set up for it. Do we? We might. We might have that set up. We'll see. But episode 227. That's right. Tonight's episode is 227. Going strong. Hard Knocks is tonight. You can watch it later, though. Don't worry. It's on demand. I know a lot of you are going to stream it online anyways. So after the show, you can go watch it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go watch episode 2 of Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Hard Knocks. So the big things we're going to get in tonight with college football, a lot of it revolves around the different Power 5 conferences, some of the projections that Kevin and myself have for these programs this year. We're going over some of the rankings, some of the schedules and stuff like that. I'm really interested to hear where you guys are. We might put a few polls up online, entertain that, as well as take phone calls on it. Again, the number to call in, as always, 347-237-5539 is the call-in line, 347-237-5539. I know. I'm going to fanboy Nebraska. I'm probably not. I haven't done that in the past. Don't know why I would do that tonight. Talking crap already. What's up here? Got a couple things. My screen's closed on me. when my online soundboard came up. So opening everything back up again. Yep. Okay. Looks good over there. So now we're ready to roll. Again, the handle for the show at the CHT on Sports. You can listen to the full version of this show in a lot of different places. We actually broadcast live on YouTube Live or Hangout, whatever you want to call it, Google Hangouts, Blog Talk Radio, and on the Spreaker app. So if you're in your car, not in front of a computer, or your phone doesn't work well with a website like blogtalkradio.com, you can download the Spreaker app. All right. And just search for Matt Long Sports or the CHT on Sports, and you'll be able to find the shows there. You can listen to it live on Spreaker. Now, shortly after the show, you can go over to SoundCloud, and you can listen to it on SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube. There's another version that we put over, just an audio version on YouTube. So there's a lot of different places you can get us. Again, the number is 347-237-5539 if you want to call in and be a part of the show. Kevin Crest will be joining me here shortly. Got a message from him a minute ago. So, all right. Just moving on to business. There's one thing that I wanted to address from Twitter real quick. We have a follower on Twitter that we're talking a little bit about the Gators today. I tweeted out earlier today regarding Gator football. I'm here in Florida, Central Florida, so the Gators are a pretty hot commodity in Central Florida. And as far as the Gators go, they were running into some issues with okay, we got an update there. I'll update that. Okay, so I'll get to that in just a second then. I'll update that in just a second. The Gators have had some problems the last few years since McElwain came in with producing offense. Some players were pretty outstanding in their comments this offseason and last season, kind of complaining about being last in the league in offense with an offensive-minded coach. His third year, I believe, in the team. He has his first real recruit that he has in that he could spend any sort of time with, and he has Malik Zaire, the transfer from Notre Dame, who, for all intents and purposes, will probably start from what I hear and what I've seen, which isn't strange at all. Usually, transfers from big schools end up starting, especially like Malik Zaire had a pretty good season. He got suspended for academics, and he decided to go ahead and transfer out away from Notre Dame to Florida. So he'll be eligible this year for the draft, by the way. So being in Florida, there's been some sort of a competition that they at least would want you to think at the quarterback position. I don't think there's tons of competition. I'm pretty sure Zaire will be the starting quarterback when they kick off, barring any injuries. But the offense has been anemic. Now, we've learned that their top wide receiver, the Gators, is in trouble again. And Antonio Callaway, who at most times last season seemed to be their offense, the only one that moved the chains. But he's now looking at a 6-game suspension. I'm sorry. He's looking at a 2-game suspension. Which one was it? Yeah, just give me the most updated one next time. Let's go. All right. He's looking at a 2-game suspension. What really hurts them is their first game is against Michigan, which the SEC doesn't normally do, playing outside of conference with a quality team. But they're playing against Michigan September 2nd, 3:30 p.m. on ABC. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to watching it, but it will be without their best wide receiver. Now, this wasn't his first incident. He's had other run-ins with testing positive for marijuana, and they're supposed to do an automatic suspension for that, which he still has not been suspended for, along with some other things. We're not going to get into the sports blotter of this. I'll have something up over on the sports blotter either tonight or tomorrow with a little bit more detail on the whole situation. But the second game is against Northern Colorado, which is probably the furthest. It could be almost the furthest east or west that the Gators have ever scheduled a team from during the regular season. Now, clearly, Alabama scheduled USC last year, so that's almost as far west as you can get without being Hawaii or Alaska. Okay? But this is not typical of SEC teams to have non-conference games outside the Southeast and aren't clearly conference games. But they still got UAB on there, right? And they got their bye week, which is an actual bye week, not a directional school. But it's going to be tough going for the Gators this season. Quarterback situation seems to be better. But where the concern has come, in my opinion, is utilization of their talents at running back. They've had some pretty good talent come through the door at running back, but I'm not seeing them utilizing him. The guy that is their best weapon right now on their team for offense is the 21-year-old junior running back, Jordan Scarlett. He should be starting, and he should be carrying the bulk. I know, he really is an offensive weapon. He has pretty decent hands. He can clearly run the ball. But NFL scouts really haven't seen him tested. So the best thing they could do in the spirit of winning and helping out their players' draft stock is play him. Feed him the rock. He was probably their most consistent back. He had the most yardage for him last season, but he was their most consistent back as well. You know, it shouldn't be a tough thing. And one of the people that did come out and make comments about them being in the bottom of the league in offense was Jordan Scarlett. So it's a wonder on one hand where you have guys that are getting involved in shenanigans off the field. And then on the other hand, you have guys that are just not being utilized, that aren't in any sort of trouble that we know of. Sure. So just a quick correction. Our guest later in the second hour, Rob Parks, he's a writer for Parks Sports and Recreation.com. So he has a blog over there. He no longer is a writer for Real Sports 101. So just wanted to update people on that. I got a message on that. So but let me bring on co-host. He is an author of the P.K. Frazier novels. He's a guest throughout the Southeast on sports shows that are listened to by many more people than this one. Not downloaded more, probably. And probably not as good looking of a pair of people on there. But nonetheless, he's on there and he gives his 2 cents on college sports. He's a contributor here, and you can read more on his blog at kevcrestsports.blogspot.com. Mr. Kevin Crest. How you doing tonight, Kevin?
I am doing great, Matthew. Good to get back in the saddle, so to speak. So a little bit of time off this summer to recharge, and time for some football, don't you think?
Yeah, I don't have the song "Back in the Saddle Again" to play, but just for the record, I would have played that if I had it. I mean, we can karaoke it.
I prefer to keep the listeners that we have, Matthew. That would be the good thing. Let's make sure they stay on, and
exactly.
We won't torture them with any karaoke versions of that song. So,
just yet.
I do karaoke. I can sing some other songs, but that's not one of them. So,
Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy. I heard that's your favorite. Is that true? Is there any truth to that?
No. No, it's not. No, sorry.
I like to sing Boot Scoot Boogie.
Oh, you know what? It's funny that you should mention that, because back in the 90s, that's actually the very first song that I sang in karaoke, because a group of people put my name in to have me sing it, and I did not know I was going to have to sing it, and I couldn't back down, so I actually had to sing it. It was at a bar in Norman, Oklahoma, and it was at the University of Oklahoma, one of the bars there, and it was a regrettable incident. I'll just say that right now. But interesting, you should bring that up. So.
The last time I was in Norman, Oklahoma, I was one of those guys outside the University of Oklahoma trying to give out forms for people to fill out to get credit cards, and giving out free ice cream from Cold Stone to do so. That was my trip to Norman.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like
I
some
was
people,
at a.
They go ahead.
I was at a bar called Mr. Bill's, is where I was. I'm not sure it's there anymore, but it was an interesting place back in 1994. So we'll move on, because
the jeans were just way too tight. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, all of that. So.
So speaking of Norman, Oklahoma, they got a sudden coaching change, seeing Bob Stoops retire, and Lincoln Riley take over as head coach there. I mean, Vegas, that kind of affected Vegas's odds a little bit, but do you think they skip a beat?
I don't know. I mean, they started out pretty rough last season, if you remember, and came back strongly to finish the season very well. I don't think they do. I mean, as far as I can tell, no players transferred. They have 8 starters back on offense from a very good team that won their last 10 football games. So, including a victory over, they actually their last 3 were a win at West Virginia in a romp.
Mm-hmm.
They took care of Oklahoma State and then beat Auburn in the Sugar Bowl. I mean, this is a team that I'm not so sure if Bob Stoops had retired, if they wouldn't have gotten some first place votes. I mean, this is a good team. So I'm not sure what this is going to mean. I mean, obviously Bob Stoops, great coach, long time at Oklahoma, but I didn't see any players transfer, and their offensive coach, who's inheriting 8 players back, including quarterback Baker Mayfield, and a pretty good receiving core. I can't pick against them. I mean, a lot of people are picking Oklahoma State, and I picked Oklahoma State last year, and so we'll have to see. I mean, I think it's going to come down to Bedlam last week of the season between these 2 teams, see who advances. But the Big 12 has a championship game this season again, and we could actually see Oklahoma State play 2 weeks in a row at the end of the season, which is kind of absurd to me. But
yeah,
well, it is what it is, and they're looking for the money grab, trying to get back in, and it may actually hurt them this year. I mean, if you think about it, can one of those teams win that game 2 weeks in a row? If they split them, they may get left out of the playoffs just because they instituted the playoff game, or the championship game. So we'll have to see how that transpires over the course of the season. But I think that's a big risk on the part of the Big 12.
Yeah, it's we've talked back and forth that it's kind of a catch-22. They play a true round robin, but we've seen in the past that the committee, the championship playoff committee, hasn't really honored the round robin system, and implementing in an extra game for a championship game may be beneficial or not, but it could be pretty toxic overall for the Big 12 because they have a less number of teams, and the level of competition that could end up knocking them out of it. So again,
yeah, I think part of that though, Matthew, is in the past the Big 12 non-conference schedule, even though they get 3 games, has been abysmal. I mean, horrible. But this year and last year as well, I mean, Oklahoma plays Ohio State. Oklahoma State travels to Pittsburgh. They also take on Tulsa. TCU takes on Arkansas. West Virginia opens with Virginia Tech. Kansas State is they have a laugher, right? They've got Central Arkansas, Charlotte, and they're at Vanderbilt, which isn't really that great a schedule. But Texas plays Maryland and they play at USC. So I'm not sure why they really need a championship game. If you go down the list even, Texas Tech plays Arizona State and they go to Houston. These are pretty good schedules.
They start off with Eastern Washington.
Sure that they need it, and in Eastern Washington's no picnic, right? I mean, they're a good FBS school. FCS school.
Yeah.
So, that's not a cakewalk in terms of their non-conference. Kansas State's pretty weak, but the rest of them, if you have you have a ranked team, I mean, Oklahoma plays Ohio State, which comes in ranked I think third or fourth, depending on the poll. Oklahoma State has to go to Pittsburgh, which is not an easy place to play at all. They also play Tulsa, which is going to be a backyard brawl.
Yeah, and that's on the 30th. That's Thursday.
And
that's 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's a tough opening game for Tulsa has nothing to lose. It's an intrastate rivalry. Tulsa's kind of the redheaded stepchild there. They'll come out hot. So West Virginia with opening at the Hokies, and they play that game in Landover, Maryland, at the Redskins Stadium, and then they play East Carolina. So these teams have done a lot to bolster their non-conference schedules. At least at the top of the league. I mean, Kansas State, it's embarrassing who they play.
Jackson State,
Baylor as well.
But Jackson State got close to beating. Didn't they beat Mississippi State?
Yeah, but still, I mean, if you're looking at the committee going, who are you playing? But I still think that, opening your question, Oklahoma State, that's going to be a close race. And by the way, don't forget about Texas with new coach Tom Herman. They have a lot of talent. I mean, Charlie Strong left that program with talent. He just couldn't get them coached up.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what Tom Herman does coming in.
Well,
I mean, we're going to find out in a hurry.
And we seen with the draft this past year. I mean, 6 Longhorns win the draft? It's not like they didn't have talent.
Yeah. I mean,
at least one in the first round.
I think they cut him loose a season or two short. I think he was going to work it out. But I also don't think he ever meshed that well with the donors and with the foundation people, and that's what you have to do at these big schools. And you look at Arkansas, for instance, where my wife works there, and I'm there. Brett Bielema, despite his struggles, has done a great job with the donors and the fans. Everybody loves Brett Bielema here; they really do. Now, can he survive another 7-6 season where they melt down at the end? I'm not sure about that, but he's going to get a lot of consideration just because of his ability to connect with the fans and the donors. And by the way, they're getting a lot of money, and the stadium is getting filled up. So that's really what it boils down to. Now, the wins and losses are important as well, but financially, if you're at University of Arkansas and you're filling 78,000 seats for at least 3 dates a year, I mean, it's a big stadium, and it's oversized for the school and for the population. But when Auburn comes in here, and they fill it up, he's done his job. He goes to a bowl game, he's done his job. And so we'll have to see about how warm his seat is. I think it all has to do with just how competitive they are. I mean, they got waxed a couple times last year. I mean, they lost 59-0 to Auburn. Excuse me, 56-3 to Auburn last year.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't even competitive in that game. LSU 38-10. These were home games, by the way. Excuse me, Auburn was on the road, but LSU was here 2 seasons in a row, and then they blew the big leads against Missouri and Virginia Tech to close out the season. So we'll see. But the contrast. My point was that Charlie Strong never did endear himself to the real movers and shakers in Austin, and Brett Bielema has here in Fayetteville. So we'll have to see how that goes. But that makes a big difference in college football. It really does. I mean, the guys have to be liked and have to raise money, have to fill seats, and that's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
And he's a good coach. he's been able to get good talent in. And we've seen here over a couple seasons like something's coming together. He seems to end up kind of losing his seniors or losing some of his playmakers right when it looks like it's going to get a little bit better. But I don't think that there's rush there in Arkansas. I think Arkansas has been so far removed from the top of the national picture as an elite school that, you know, having another 4-loss, 5-loss season can be stomached fairly easily, as long as they're looking competitive in games. I mean, they should have a decent record by the time that they see some upper level competition. So I mean, 7-6 shouldn't be terrible. I mean, they're looking at starting off with Texas or FAMU. That's a win. Again, that's on a Thursday as well. So Tulsa and Oklahoma State on Thursday, and then Arkansas and FAMU are also on Thursday. Then the 9th, so a week and a half later, they play TCU at home.
And that by the way is a really big game. Okay, Arkansas beat TCU last year in double overtime down there. They get him up here in Fayetteville this year. You have to assume they're going to beat FAMU, although they've stubbed their toe in the past in those games. But I think they're going to be ready. If they beat TCU, they get a week off, and then they've got Texas A&M in Jerry's World in Dallas. And if they win that game, I mean, they haven't beaten Texas A&M in 5 years. They haven't beaten them since they joined the conference. But if they do find a way to win that game, they've got New Mexico State, which will probably be a win.
South Carolina,
which they should win. They could end up. I mean, this is a stretch still. They could have traveling to Alabama 5-0.
Yeah, potentially.
They played Alabama tough in the past. I happen to think, and I've said this. I said this on my on the show on my Lou in the Morning out of Florida, and it's a very heavily SEC audience because the show we stream it. We stream it nationally, of course, on the internet. We also on the air. It's out of close to Mobile, Alabama. So it covers the Panhandle of Florida, southern Alabama, southern Mississippi, and eastern Louisiana. Okay, you can't get much more SEC country than that. And I said last week on the show, I just think Alabama's due for the breaks to go a different way. And I think Nick Saban's a great coach. I think the program's in great shape. But you got to figure the ball is going to bounce a long way for them at some point.
Yeah.
And because the SEC West is so tough, you've got LSU and you have Arkansas, although Ole Miss is going to be down. Mississippi State's not great. But at some point, Alabama, you got to figure, they're going to have a little bit of a tough time, whether it's injuries, right? It could just be injuries. And not to mention, Alabama opens the season against Florida State.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's a big game right out of the chute. First week into the season, I am looking so forward to that game. You got, Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban were on the coaching staff at LSU together. So this will be a very interesting matchup, between these two friends, coaches, teams. You think of the last 50 years in college football, and you don't get much better than Florida State and Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they both had their ups and downs a little bit, but still, that game in Atlanta, that's going to set the stage for the season. Because the loser has no margin for error, right? The loser can't lose another game. In all likelihood, I mean, they possibly. I think Alabama could lose another game, possibly, but probably not. So, the loser of that game is
Florida
against the wall.
Because Florida State has Miami, the third game of the year, which again, I'm working on an article called "Flip My U," and I flip my house. That teams that could be on the rebound. And the University of Miami is one of the teams on the list that I'm working on for that article. They could be a team that we see on the rebound. When you recruit the southern half of Florida, the amount of talent that's there, you can make some pretty big strides pretty quickly. So they could be on a rebound. I don't know what Mark Richt has in store at quarterback, exactly which directions they're going to go. But it looks pretty interesting down there. And then the third to last game is Clemson. And then they have Florida, the last game of the year. And then whoever's in the SEC championship, which could end up being Florida 2 weeks in a row. So, or maybe Duke. I don't know. Or not Florida State.
I'll believe the Miami thing when I see it. Okay, obviously I'm Virginia Tech person. I do a lot of ACC, SEC stuff.
Virginia Tech's on the other side too, so we could see Florida State, Virginia Tech for the title game. They're in the Coastal, aren't they?
You could see Florida State. You could see Florida State play Miami again. Don't count Louisville out. Then Atlantic has Florida State, Louisville, Clemson.
That's the thing is
right?
Louisville.
And you got the Coastal. The Coastal. You have Miami.
The thing is about
you got Georgia Tech.
Louisville always finds a way to stub their toe. Like last year, losing to Kentucky the last game of the year. That was just like the nail in the coffin. They had one other game.
That was bad. Yeah, that was bad.
Beat by a nobody.
They lost to Houston. Well, they lost to Houston. Then they lost to Kentucky. Then they lost to LSU in the bowl game. They went 0-3 at the end of the season, and that was just a huge letdown. At the end of the season, and that you got to attribute that to the coaching staff. That's Bobby Petrino. Now, Petrino's probably going to have this team back. I mean, a lot of things you have to look at for these schedules is who are they playing? On the other side of the league, and like Louisville doesn't play Miami or Virginia Tech, right? They play North Carolina and Virginia, and if you look at the prognostications, you got North Carolina. North Carolina's picked 5th in the Coastal. Virginia's picked last, so they get a real break there. They don't play Notre Dame, which is Notre Dame plays 5 ACC schools, and Louisville opens against Purdue and Indianapolis. So and their non-conference schedule is Purdue, Kent State, Murray State, and Kentucky. I mean, come on. This is a schedule that and you've got Lamar Jackson back. I mean, this is a schedule that we're not talking about Louisville, although because they lost a lot of their skill players, but Bobby Petrino brings skill players in like nothing. I mean, that's an easy thing for him to do. They've got 6 back on defense. I mean, nobody's talking about Louisville. Louisville has a schedule that is so favorable. They've got Clemson in week 3. Last year, they let that game get away from them. They had that game won against Clemson last year and lost that game, which ultimately resulted in Clemson being able to win the national championship. So they host Clemson this year. They beat Clemson. Their next big game is Florida State, October 21st. And who knows? So we'll see. I mean, it's very interesting when you look at the scheduling because because Louisville is very favorable, but they have enough on their schedule to be able to, for the committee to go, well, if they run the table, they'll have beaten Clemson and Florida State. That'll be enough to get them in, probably. The rest of their schedule's cream puff. I mean, seriously.
You know, I'm seeing people are feeling that Wake Forest and Boston College are going to end up with winning seasons, 7-6. Been pretty popular belief. And as favorable as the schedule is for Louisville, they just find a way to lose some teams every year. Either some people say, like Clemson, they had, teams that they had beat versus also in situations where making it a game against something like Auburn a couple years ago. Auburn wasn't a good team a couple years ago. They ended up losing to Auburn. And, I mean, they started the season 0-3. Losing to Auburn, Houston, Clemson. And they halfway through the season, I mean, they're 2-4. They got it together. They beat Texas A&M in the bowl game. But that's the thing is, kind of coming back to the point earlier, we were talking about Texas A&M. I mean, Texas A&M, from what I understood, I think they're only returning 5 starters on offense. And they're returning a few on defense. And the defensive line is there towards the top half of the SEC as far as where they're ranked. But I don't know if Texas A&M, kind of like Louisville, Texas A&M is going to be able to do much. I think 8-5 is a very favorable favorable number for them, but I don't necessarily agree with it. Texas A&M, I think Louisville or Texas A&M could really go in either direction here. I mean, Texas A&M opens up against UCLA at UCLA. We saw Texas go out and struggle out west. Any of those teams, anytime you go out to California, they struggle against Berkeley. UCLA they have Rosen, one of the top 3 quarterbacks in college football, easily, and a former pro head coach. I mean, UCLA can win football games. That will be a tough game. Nichols, they should beat Nichols, but Nichols is one of those small schools that have kept bringing in.
Yeah, that's a. Yeah, you're paying them to show up, and then they got Louisiana, which used to be called Louisiana Monroe, I believe. But yes, but that A&M on my blog, if people go back and they look at the last 3 or 4, I've done I did a series of the big games for the first 2 weeks of the season. I did them week by week, and that A&M at UCLA game, that's a big game. We'll have to see how UCLA, rebounds after getting Josh Rosen back from his injury last year. But that UCLA team is a good team. It's also interesting because Jim Moore is probably on the hot seat in UCLA. He hasn't done that much the last couple of seasons.
You'd figure some of this too.
See. I mean, but the other thing you have to look at for A&M is that the last couple of years they've gone like 5-0, 6-0 to start the season. And last year, they went 6-0 to start the season. That included wins over UCLA, Auburn, Arkansas, Tennessee. And then they went 2-4 coming down the stretch. They lost their last 4 SEC games. They beat New Mexico State and UT, Texas, San Antonio, which, come on, you got to win those. And they lost to Kansas State in the Texas Bowl. So their coach is on the hot seat because they've just faltered down the stretch. I mean, it's been pretty bad for Kevin Sumlin. He needs to get that thing going. But they've come out of the chute pretty well the last couple of seasons, and so we'll have to see how that goes. But going at UCLA, that's a big time football game right there. Going into the Rose Bowl, that's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to. I love the first couple of weeks of college. I love every week of college football, but the first couple of weeks really start to set the tone for the season. Because, before we know it, we'll be in week 4. It'll be here before we know it. So time just flies by so fast to begin with. Now, as far as the SEC, just kind of getting back there real quick. How do you see LSU after keeping Orgeron as the head coach? Do you see them progressing this year? Maybe a 2-loss team, a 3-loss team? Or are they going to really compete? I mean, they start off with BYU, Chattanooga, Mississippi State, Syracuse, Troy, at Florida, Auburn, Mississippi, Ole Miss, Alabama on the 4th of November, Arkansas the 11th, 18th of November, Tennessee, and then finishing out their season at Texas A&M on Thanksgiving Day. So it's not a terribly tough schedule. I mean, outside of having Alabama, Tennessee, Arkansas, Florida is very winnable, even in the swamp.
Well, their schedule's backloaded, right?
Yeah.
Because they should beat BYU. Although so let's backtrack a second. I'm going to go through my big games for week 1, right?
Okay.
And obviously LSU BYU is one of them, but so I've got in my blog, and people can go back and look at this. I've got Washington and Rutgers. Now, I know people are going to go, "What? Rutgers, Washington should," but that's a West Coast team going east, right? So that'll be interesting. You've got Alabama, Florida State. We talked about that one. That needs no more hype. You've got West Virginia, Virginia Tech at Landover. Both of those schools, I think, can contend in their conference. I think they really can. I mean, Virginia Tech probably more so than West Virginia, because Virginia Tech's in the easier half of the league. That's a revival of a long-time rivalry that was discontinued when West Virginia went to the Big 12 and Virginia Tech went to the ACC. So that's a rivalry game. You've got a game that people aren't talking much about, Michigan, Florida. Florida just suspended 7 players, so we'll have to see what happens in that game. But that's in Jerry's world. You've got BYU, LSU, which we just were talking about. That's a tough opening game for LSU. I mean, they got to come out of the chute. It's in Houston. You'll have 90% of the stadium. LSU, it'll be like a home game at NRG. BYU has to travel, 1,400 miles. They call it a neutral game, but it won't be. You got A&M, UCLA. We talked about that game. That's going to set the stage for either of those seasons. And you got Tennessee, Georgia Tech, which is another ACC, SEC game, the second game in Atlanta that weekend. So got some games that, not necessarily national games, but the Pac-12 is wide open, and so you've got UCLA. I mean, if they do pull off a win over A&M at home, who knows? Because you're right, they had one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the country. Arguably, you could make an argument he's the best. But he didn't play much last year. He got injured, and UCLA went in the tank. But so those are all the first 2 days of the season right there. Mm-hmm. What a way to start, right? I mean, oh my gosh! But you talk about LSU. I'll jump ahead now. You asked me about them. Their schedule is backloaded. So They go to Alabama November 4th, and they follow that up against Arkansas, which for some reason Arkansas always plays LSU tough. And you have to look at the records of the teams that play Alabama. Look at what they've done the week after. They almost always lose because they're beaten up.
Mm-hmm.
They're absolutely beaten up. So now you've got LSU having to play a tough Arkansas team after playing Alabama. Then they got to go to Tennessee, really good football team, and they close up the season at home against A&M. LSU could go into Alabama 7-0 or 8-0 and come out of the season 9-3. I mean, they really could. However, I'm going to say I like the move to keep Ed Orgeron. I totally agreed with it. I think that was their best choice. I think LSU is my pick to win the SEC West. It is
over Alabama.
Over Alabama.
This is the year.
Over Alabama.
That's what you're saying.
And I think they could actually win it and lose to Alabama, because I think Alabama's going to lose one or two. I just feel like the string's they're going to take a blip. Now that doesn't mean they're going to be the program's going to crap. I just, having been a sports fan for a long time, you see these trends and you look at this, and I just don't. Something's got to go the other way, right? The odds are that something goes the other way.
Eventually.
Maybe it's a bad bounce against LSU. Maybe it's a kick return. LSU's defense is going to be stout again. I mean, it just is. I mean, they gave up very few points last year. And even against Alabama last year, it was a 10-0 game. They lost 10-0. Right? Then they gave up 16 to Florida. They gave up 10 to Arkansas. I mean, they gave up 9. They held Louisville to 9 points in the bowl game. That's ridiculous. That was a team scoring 50 points a game, right? So this is a very stout defensive team. It's not going to change. I mean, Jalen Hurts for Alabama is really good, but what do the skill players look like? So I like LSU to win the SEC West. I think they'll lose a game. Very likely they'll very likely lose to Arkansas. If they beat Alabama and lose to Arkansas, they're still going to win because they have a tiebreaker over Alabama. That's my pick. I think they're going to do very well. Orgeron's done a great job with the players. They're behind him, and so But I'm rarely correct, but I can see that one coming. And so it's interesting, but long circuitous route to the answer. I like LSU. I think that they because I think they're going to get a lot of momentum early in the season. They don't. If they get by BYU, which I think they will, only because they get to play them virtually at home in Houston, they're going to have lots of momentum getting in that Alabama game. And I give them at least a 40% chance to win that game, maybe 50. And so they have a lot of momentum. And that's going to their defense is going to start shutting people down. I mean, they play Chattanooga, that's a shutout. At Mississippi State, they'll give up 3, 7, 10. They host Syracuse, they're going to shut them down. Troy, that's a non-game. At Florida's offense isn't all that good. And the big game to me is going to be Auburn. See if they can put that defense against Auburn. But last year, we only gave up, 18 points, and that was because it was an offensive problem. And that's why Les Miles got fired. So we'll see. So I'll go with LSU in the West, just to be a contrarian, but not too contrarian. I think most people have LSU finishing second in the West behind Alabama. I just don't see Alabama, but we'll see. That's why they play the games.
I'm there with you that It's just a matter of time before Alabama falters. Something. There's got to be a bit of an off season, you know. I'm just saying.
I'm not talking about a 5-loss season. I'm talking about they lose a couple of games that are important and they don't advance. I mean, there's no way Alabama goes worse than 9-3. I mean, right? I mean, that's not going to happen. But if they do go 9-3 or even 10-2, and you get a 10-2 LSU team that beats them, that's not the end of the streak. It's just a flip. I mean, Florida State went like 12 years finishing in the top 5 every year, and in that stretch they won 2 national championships. I mean, what Alabama's done is extraordinary. But you got to figure at some point there's a little bit of a there's the key injury. Jalen Hurts, quarterback, isn't exactly he's a Robert Griffin III kind of guy. I mean, he's vulnerable back there. Okay, and I'm not sure they have a really good backup. So that's where I'm coming from, and I don't want Alabama fans to think I'm trash Alabama. I have the utmost respect, and I said this on my show on Friday. I mean, the ridicule that Nick Saban takes is ridiculous. There was one coach that named him that actually named him the most overrated coach. How do you overrate a guy that's won national championships at 2 schools, and he runs pristine programs? How do you overrate the guy? He's the best. There's just no question. He's the best. But it's college football. You got 18 to 23-year-olds. You're gonna have something go. He can't control injuries. He can't control everything. And so I'm just looking at. I'm playing the odds here. If you look at it on paper and you do the analysis of the football team, they're definitely one of the top 4 teams in the country. They should, if everything goes their way, they should get to the playoffs again.
They're due. Is what you're saying? They're due for a slip up.
Mm-hmm. That's all it is. That's all I'm saying. They're due for some misfortune, and I'm not talking about, like I said, drastic misfortune. I'm just talking about a ball bounces the wrong way once in a while, and they don't get in. That's nothing to say if the program's in disarray or anything against Nick Saban. It's a fantastic program. He's resurrected the program and done an incredible job with it. And I'm looking at Justin Fuente at Virginia Tech. He's done the same thing to a program that had got kind of dormant there the last 3 or 4 years. No disrespect to Frank Beamer, but he kind of let it go, and all of a sudden, resurgent last year, almost beat Clemson in the AC championship game. So same kind of thing. A guy comes in, gives new energy, resurgence, and you've got to give all the credit in the world to Nick Saban. I mean, he's head and shoulders. I mean, the only guy that's even in the conversation is Urban Meyer, right? I mean, that's it. They're the only 2 guys in the conversation right now. Yeah, it's a very short list. Yeah, it's a very short list, right? I mean, national championships. I mean, count them up over the last 10 years. Don't they have
half
8? Don't they have 8
more than half?
The last 11 national championships?
I know it's more than half.
Yeah, I mean, Urban had 2 at Florida, 1 at Ohio State. Nick's had 5 at Alabama. It's a very short list, and they're the only ones on it. I mean, it isn't even that there's a longer list. There's only 2 guys on it. It's those 2 guys. And they both did it at 2 schools, which is extraordinary to do, by the way. Nobody's done that. They both won national championships at 2 different schools. That's almost impossible to do. It really is. It's very difficult. Nobody's done it except for those 2 guys. So, I hats off, and we'll see. I mean, Ohio State's got a little tough road this year, but their schedule's probably even more favorable than last year. And they've got Oklahoma week 2. And that's a national game. I mean, right? You've got Florida State, Alabama, and Oklahoma, Ohio State in the first 2 weeks of the season. That's like the semifinals or the Final Four in the first 2 weeks of the season. But if you look at Ohio State's schedule, they dodge Wisconsin, and you're a Big Ten guy, right? You know this.
Yeah.
They dodge Wisconsin, right? But they do have to travel to Nebraska and Iowa, and they've got a stretch there. They go at Nebraska, a week off, host Penn State, at Iowa, and that's going to be their season there. Now, it's always the last game against Michigan, but I think Michigan's going to be a little down. I think they're overrated based on the talent they have coming back. But if Ohio State gets past Oklahoma in week 2, they're just going to cruise into your school at Lincoln, and that's going to be a jazzed up stadium on October 7th, no matter what. October 14th, excuse me. No matter what.
I so much want to be there. I doubt that happens.
Well, what, Nebraska's sold out since what, the Revolutionary War or something? You can't get a ticket.
Somewhere.
I mean,
the French. I think it was the French and Indian War. Wasn't that the French and Indian War? That.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever.
Somewhere.
Yeah. It's been a long time. It's been a long time since you get a ticket to the Nebraska game. And so, yeah.
Let me put. I'll actually literally though. There's been sellouts at Memorial Stadium for Nebraska football games longer than African Americans have had the right to vote in this country.
1961, right?
Yep.
1962
was the
sellout.
Yep.
62. Okay. All right. So, yeah, 50. Yeah, exactly. That's 55 years. Okay. So that's just crazy. And so, that's, and I've been kind of a Nebraska opponent. I mean, I think Mike Riley is going to do something. I just think he just got something that he can do with that team. They go back to they play at Oregon in week 1. I'm sure you're fully aware of Nebraska's schedule. Week 2. But Mike Riley's pretty familiar with going to Oregon. He coached Oregon State for years, so that won't be a problem for him and his coaching staff. But and we'll see how Oregon. I mean, that's going to be switching gears to the Pac-12. We'll see if Oregon can bounce back from last year.
Yeah,
coach.
It'll be interesting. Willie does pretty good right off the bat with most of the teams that he's with. What I want to see is Tanner Lee as advertised. He did well his rookie year at Tulane, then transferred to Nebraska, and now let's see. I don't know. It's always you've been a bit more optimistic with them than I have. I've kind of been in a holding pattern. Let's wait and see. Yeah, Mike Riley has more resources to his availability at Nebraska than he did in Corvallis at Oregon State. Not as much as he had when he was an assistant coach at SC. It's kind of up in the air. Is Langsdorff, is he the guy? I mean, is that the offensive coordinator that's going to make it happen? Bringing in the former head coach of Cincinnati as your defensive coordinator, is this the guy that moving from a 4-3, which Nebraska's historically always been a 4-3 or, a base cover 2 defense, moving to a 3-4. So it's something that Nebraska really we haven't seen from Nebraska. Now, they're 4-3 in the past. They've had very athletic defensive ends, which at times made them kind of look more like a 3-4 than a 4-3. But still, it was a base 4-3. It was just what they were doing seemed to work well. And they had strength and conditioning, which didn't exist anywhere else. So when you have something like strength and conditioning that makes bigger, stronger, faster athletes out of people, that's you're going to get those kind of results.
Well, the 3-4 in Arkansas, by the way, is also moving to a 3-4. Tends to allow you to defend the spread offenses better, right? Because you've got those outside guys with speed that can also cover guys out of backfield, and you can squeeze the field a little bit. You can, and so I know that's why Arkansas is going to it. I'm sure Nebraska, and sometimes you make the change to fit your personnel. I'm not sure how Nebraska. At Arkansas, I know they're making the change to fit the personnel that they have. And so Arkansas was getting gassed last year on the bubble screens. Against a 4-3, those defensive ends are pass rushing and they're twisting and they're going. A 3-4, the two outside linebackers are spreading wide and they're going to cover that bubble screen. So, I don't know. I didn't watch enough of Nebraska last year. I watched a lot of, I watched a lot of football, as your listeners know. I watched a lot of football, and so, but I don't know exactly specifically what that'll do to Nebraska. But I do know that you give up 40 points to Iowa in the last game of the season, 37 to Tennessee in the bowl game, and that didn't sit well with Wiley. Because Iowa wasn't exactly an offensive juggernaut, right?
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure Nebraska single-handedly got Joshua Dobbs drafted higher. Like, I think he should probably donate a large sum of money to the University of Nebraska for getting him moved up that high in the draft. I think that's what it is. We have in about a little over 10 minutes, Rob Parks Jr. He's a former contributor of TMZ, and he writes now he has his own blog. He'll be joining us here just after 10. But I want to get James Bell. He is one of our college football contributors, and he's the editor for the Boxing Source and the host of the Boxing Source radio show. It's every Sunday here from 7:30 to 9:30. On the Go Long Media channel on Blog Talk. I'm going to bring him on as part of this discussion too. How you doing tonight, James?
I'm doing all right.
It's nice to hear your voice back on here again too. I mean, is it college football that's bringing everybody back in together? Is that what it is? Are we reunited for college sports?
Yeah, pretty much. Yep, because you have one of the biggest games in college football pretty much for the first game of the season or first week of the season that we've seen. I mean, you have, preseason number 1 Alabama going up against preseason number 3 Florida State. I mean, I kind of knew that it would be a top 5 matchup before the polls even came out, but to have, both of them being the top 3 makes it even bigger there. So we'll be looking forward to that matchup and, other key matchups in that first week of the college football season, including Michigan versus Florida.
Is there who are the teams that you're looking at the most right now? Who are you looking forward to seeing this season?
This season?
Yeah. Who really catches your eye?
Well, USC does, of course, because of Sam Darnold. They have that great game in the Rose Bowl against Penn State, and Sam Darnold had his, performance out there that caught the eyes of many. So he's been there as a leading candidate for the Heisman Trophy this season. So I like to see how they perform. Another team I like to see that might be a little bit under the radar, but has like a high ranking this year is Oklahoma State. I think that, there are a few people that are buying into Oklahoma State, saying that they could have a serious case to win the Big 12 this year. So I'm trying to see how they are going to fare. And the other team I want to see how they respond is Clemson. Of course, you have all of their skill or their best skill position players leave for the NFL. So I'd like to see, how they're going to be able to come out there in the first week or the first few weeks of the season, which, they had the home game against Auburn, and in the regular season schedule, they'll have that home game against Florida State, but also the road game against Louisville, which was mentioned. So I'd like to see how they're going to be able to fare in that or in this season as well.
Why is it, let me ask you this. We see teams year in and year out that we'll see some big changes. What is it about Clemson? Because the last 2 seasons we were dead set on their personnel, their recruiting, and all that they're doing is right up there with the level of FSU and Alabama. And now all of a sudden they just have one class where, they've had a lot of people graduate. So why is it that they're not reloading? It seems more like people are thinking that they're more rebuilding.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that about Clemson. I think the thing about what you have there is that Dabo Swinney has been kind of to a point an underrated recruiter. I think he's had, a fairly deep recruiting classes. They've been, ranked fairly high over the past few years. So I think that's something there where, that's why he's been able to pull off those 10-win seasons, year after year after year, before finally getting it to the point where he won the national championship last year. So, this year is going to be something, for, people to watch, but it's not like, they're like have a significant drop because, for example, right now, coming up for next year, they could be possibly getting 2 to 3 top recruits in the nation. So they're not necessarily a team that's going to slack off all too tough here, after this year. They might, dip down a little bit, but not that much.
Well, the big question there, right, is Deshaun Watson's departure. Can they replace him at quarterback? Because Deshaun Watson was such a leader. He single-handedly, because that's not accurate. He's a great skill players, but and his ability to lead that team was really the difference in them winning the national championship. And if they get another guy to come in behind him, Kelly Bryant right now, a junior, is slated to be the starter. We never saw him, right? Because Deshaun Watson played virtually every snap. So that's going to be the big question mark there. And if they reload at quarterback, if this kid can play at even close to Deshaun Watson's level, who knows what they can do. So plus they have 7 starters back on defense, and that wasn't a bad defense. It was they had their lapses. Pittsburgh scored them in the fourth quarter. That was kind of an anomaly, but that was a pretty good defense too. Look what they did in the playoffs. So I agree with you. That ACC Atlantic with Florida State, Clemson, and Louisville is going to be a dogfight again. And I'm just hoping my team, Virginia Tech, emerges from the Coastal and gets a shot at them again, because that's going to be a tough road there in the ACC Atlantic. It really is. It will be again. Yep. Those top 3 teams, you can throw a blanket over them talent-wise, right, James? Because you still have Lamar Jackson at Louisville. They let down late last season, but that team was scoring at 53 points a game for the first 8 games of the season. So we'll see. I don't think Clemson's rebuilding at all. They're reloading as well, but you've got to have a quarterback. You've got to have the quarterback, and if this kid can't replace Deshaun Watson, then they're going to take a step back.
Yeah, they will. The thing about it is that they, for Clemson, they got their defense there. So with one of the best defensive lines in the country, if not the best defensive line in the country, with Cleveland Farrell, coming back, Dexter Lawrence, Christian Wilkins, and Jabril Robinson being among the top contributors there within the defensive line. So, I mean, if they're able to, make some noise with that defense and force some turnovers, then, Kelly Bryant might not have to do, all that much there for them at quarterback on offense. It's just that, as long as they're, able to control the ball and control the clock and then, make the defense, make some plays, then they'll be, doing pretty fine there. It's just, like you said, who they have coming up in their schedule with Louisville, Florida State, and Auburn being among the key games that they have this season.
Yeah, that Auburn game, James, I have that as like that week 2. That's a big game right there. There's a lot of really good SEC, ACC games early in the season in terms of the interconference games, and that's a big one. I mean, that was a big game for Clemson last year. They went into Auburn, opened the season with a win, and never looked back. And so we'll have to see what happens. It's in week 2 this year, so a little bit later, but that'll be an interesting game because Auburn, Gus Malzahn at Auburn. He's thinking his team can challenge Alabama straight up, and I'm not sure about that. But we'll have to see how they do against Clemson because they're going to get a good listen.
He hit him with.
They're going to get a good dose of Alabama. Listen, Clemson looks a lot like Alabama this year because Clemson's going to be defensive oriented. If Auburn can't beat Clemson, they don't look fair against Alabama.
You just hit him with a lead course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
not so fast.
Not so fast. That's gonna be a barometer game for both teams. You were talking about Auburn, and they might not, be there among the top in the SEC West with Alabama and LSU, but Clemson on the flip side, you got Florida State. While they do, Florida State has that opening game against Alabama there, they're still going to be amongst the top, 5 or 10 team in the country. And then after, Clemson faces Auburn, they got to turn around the next week and go to Louisville. So those are 2 tough games right there back to back for Clemson, pretty much to start their season there before they have like a little bit of a, break here until they face your team, Virginia Tech, on September 30th. So, there's no necessarily any gimmies here in the ACC this year.
Yeah, let's not discount that game. Virginia Tech came with an eyelash of beating Clemson, in the championship game last year. Now they get them in Lane Stadium. That's a big game, and that could, if Virginia Tech beats West Virginia and Clemson beats Auburn, that's going to be a national game. I mean, that's going to be a big game on the national stage. The winner of that game, especially for Virginia Tech, because Virginia Tech, ostensibly, if they get through those games, then they just have to deal with the Miami game for the most part. I mean, that's the toughest game, and so that's going to be a big game. I mean, Clemson has to come to Lane Stadium. They haven't played there in a few years. That's going to be a good one. That'll be regardless, it's going to be a really good football game. We'll have to see. And Virginia Tech has the same question mark as Clemson does at quarterback. Virginia Tech's quarterback unfortunately went to the pros and didn't get drafted, and I'm not sure he's on a roster right now. But they've got to bring a guy in, Josh Jackson. They just named him starter, talented redshirt sophomore, see what he can do. So that's the question mark of Virginia Tech. We know the defense is going to be good. It usually is. The question is, do we have a quarterback? And then we'll have to see about that.
Let me ask, I had a Twitter question earlier. As far as we're looking at at the University of Florida, the big question mark has been quarterback. Where do you guys see them going as far as quarterback? Do you see Malik Zaire being the number one there? Or where do you see the quarterback situation going at Florida?
I thought they were going to try to get in that redshirt freshman Felipe Franks and, have him start instead of having Malik Zaire. But they're with Florida. I mean, they have that. I posted a story on social media about what's going on with a few of the key players that are on the Florida Gators, including the wide receiver Antonio Callaway. So
yeah, can you update the listeners on that?
More. Well, the thing about that is that with Florida, they had like 4 players within their roster that purchased a few items on the university's dime, so to speak. A lot of that
meaning
a lot of that was like coming from university funds. They were talking about $15,000, but it was actually like $1,500. But,
so essentially, they use their student card to go to the student bookstore center
the student card
to buy stuff that was non-approved, and then decided to turn around and sell it for profit. Did I understand most of it correctly?
Well, that's most of that. So what's going to happen is that, it's just a misuse of school issued funds. So instead of, like you were saying, like having to buy books for the bookstore, they said that a lot of the players said they use the funds for their scholarship to buy electronics. And then later reported this card stolen, but some of them ended up selling those electronics there that were purchased by the school issued funds. And so, as a result, up to 7 players were going to be suspended for that season opener against Michigan. This is, as of Sunday. So, Antonio Callaway is going to be one of those guys. Defensive end, Kevon Davis, Kadeem Telford, offensive tackle, D lineman, Richard Desir Jones, Jordan Smith, and linebackers, James Houston and Ventrell Miller. So, they're going to have
Smith injured?
Key guys
or no, wait.
On both sides of the ball.
Who was it that got arrested for the DUI? A couple weeks
DUI?
before.
Oh, I don't know who. Because Callaway was when there was had issues because of marijuana.
Callaway had a marijuana charge. I'm talking about just a couple weeks before.
Yeah.
Callaway. Hold on. Yeah, because they had
James,
another player.
Florida's going to be diminished against Michigan.
Yeah,
they've got some key players out, and so. But if you look at Florida long term, let's just say forget the first game of the season, just in the SEC. Mm-hmm. The question mark is still: can a Jim McElwain team generate enough offense? Because, for instance, last year, right, you saw some real brain farts from them, excuse my French. I mean, they scored 10 against Arkansas. Arkansas gave up 39 rushing touchdowns on the season. They gave up 3.5 rushing touchdowns a game, and Florida scored 10 points against them, right?
It was Florida State.
They scored 20 against a South Carolina team that wasn't very good. I mean, this is an offense that for most of last season, with the exception of the Missouri game, just was non-productive. And then, of course, they turn it on against Iowa. It's a bowl game. It doesn't matter to me. But so the big question is, can they score? I mean, they got waxed by Alabama. I mean, waxed. by Alabama.
Yeah.
54-16. So is this a pretender or a contender? I happen to believe that Georgia's going to be really tough to beat because their defense is for real. They returned 10 starters off a pretty good defense last year, right? I mean, they're going to be stout.
Yeah, they're going to be a team to watch out for there in Georgia because I mean like you said, they're going to have those all those starters returning on defense, and Easton comes back for them as well. So I really like to see if Georgia could really turn the corner there in the SEC East because I mean with Florida, I mean, and I'm kind of biased. I mean, if you check the history that I've had on these shows, I don't really, favor Florida all too much. Never have, and I probably never will. But it's usually it's the same thing with Florida almost every year. You kind of like with their schedule, you expect them to win at least 8 or 9 games every year at the bare minimum. And, even with the coaching changes that they've had, they've still been able to float around that win total. So I don't see it being much different this year. It's just that, you have those games against, Georgia, you have the LSU game, you have the Florida State game. So now it's with this Michigan game, I don't see them getting that win. Tennessee was able to beat them last year. Let's see if that could happen this year. And their other SEC West game is home against Texas A&M. So,
and LSU, they got to play LSU.
Yeah, they got to play LSU the week before that. Yeah.
Yeah, they've got a tough schedule. They have a tough schedule. That's a tough schedule.
Yeah. The thing about it is that they have that neutral site games against Michigan and Georgia, but they're going to be home against Tennessee, home against LSU, home against Texas A&M, and home against Florida State. But like you said, that offense, we don't know if that offense is going to be clicking here and there for the Gators, and they're going to need that against some of these teams here in the SEC.
I don't give them much of a chance to do anything significant.
Last year they opened up against Massachusetts, which was one of the worst teams in FBS. They trade Massachusetts for Michigan. That's not a good trade. Okay.
That was. I mean, that's one of those weird times. I mean, there was like something that I saw over the past week or week and a half where somebody posted the first or the opening games for the Florida Gators for the last 15 years, and none of them. Yeah, and none of them were at the level even close to Michigan. So for them to have like this, for them to agree to be part of that kickoff classic there in, in Jerry Jones' world was a rarity for me to see because you never really see that come out of the Florida Gators. So, I mean, now it's just like, for a team that is, even though they lost a lot on defense, they recruit very well on both sides of the ball. So I really like to see how, Florida is going to be able to fare against the Michigan Wolverines in that opening game.
Well, we were talking earlier. I think you and I were, maybe I was talking about this on Lou on Friday, Matthew.
Yeah.
I think Michigan's way overrated. They have nobody coming back. I mean, that's a defeated squad, and they're ranked like between 13th and 17th nationally. I'm going, I don't see that at all. Now they're catching a break with Florida getting some players suspended in the first game, but I don't see Michigan competing for the Big Ten title. I mean, I'm looking at Ohio State. I'm looking at Penn State. I'm looking at maybe on the other side, Matthew, your side of the draw there. I'm maybe looking at Nebraska, Wisconsin. But I don't see Michigan in the mix. I just don't. But I may be totally wrong. I mean, Jim Harbaugh may be a coach those guys up, but I see next year because James, I think, correct me if I'm wrong. They had one hell of a recruiting class at Michigan, but traditionally freshmen don't. You don't bring freshmen across the board and make that big of an impact in football. Maybe in basketball, but not in football.
That's one thing I was saying.
Yeah, I mean, well, they
as far as
they kind of had pretty good.
Well, because so many people are high on Miami, because they're getting scholarships back. But we just look at what USC was last year. They were a little bit short of what of where they needed to be in order to really get past that hump. I mean, Sam Darnold wasn't even starting. What is it, third game in? Really? Was a solidified starter?
Yeah.
I mean, it was a completely different team after he started playing. So we can't assume that what we're going to see at the beginning is going to be the rest of it. And again, we've underestimated Harbaugh since his first game back in college football at Michigan. And he has been, in some situations, he has overperformed or arrived a bit early. And then in some situations, we'd liked him to have done more. But it's tough when you play Ohio State every year. It's tough when you end up played Penn State 2 of the last 3 years too. So I mean, they've got a tough draw on that side of the conference. They got Michigan State, who hasn't been the same, but still, it's not a letdown game. They lost, I believe. Didn't they lose one of the last 3 years too? They lost one game to Michigan.
Ooh.
Michigan State. Michigan lost to Michigan State.
No, that last year they lost to Iowa and
Iowa.
in
That's
the
what it
Ohio
was.
State game.
Yeah. So I mean, nothing's been kind of a gimme for them. I mean, he's obviously struggled sometimes with his quarterbacks, and he's taken a lot of JUCO transfers, and obviously he's working his way through it. I wouldn't count them out. I wouldn't say they're overrated. I would disagree with you there, Kevin. But
only have one starter. Only have one starter back on defense. 4 starters back on offense. I mean, this is a team that is going to have to, Now, granted, that was a pretty good defense. They lost. They have to bring the one guy back on, but I mean, they lost an entire class of athletes. I mean, I'm not underestimating Jim Harbaugh by any chance, but by any rate. But it is going to be a difficult, I think.
So what you're saying, what I hear is he's finally going to get to see what his recruits are going to do. Did I hear it right?
Yeah, his recruits.
Yeah. Well,
freshmen.
Well, yeah, most of
freshmen,
them, yeah.
Sophomores. Freshmen, sophomores, right? I mean, his depth chart is almost entirely sophomores and juniors. I mean, he's got a couple freshmen in there, but they're probably redshirt freshmen. But the defense is totally an overhaul. Now, it may be very good defense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but and their schedule isn't all that tough. I mean, they don't have to. They don't play Iowa or Nebraska. They do have to play Wisconsin, okay, on the other side of the bracket. And so they play Purdue, Minnesota, Wisconsin, which is a lot easier than Iowa, Nebraska, Wisconsin. So they've got a break there.
Yeah, I might try to go to that Maryland game on November 11th. I'm going to see if I can pull that off.
All right. Well, we'll put in a request for credentials. So.
Yeah.
That should be that's a pretty good game. I mean, Maryland's an interesting team, James. To see where they can come. They've kind of been kind of getting better, but
not really.
Like 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of thing, right? I mean, Yeah, they made it to a bowl game last year. I mean, they went 6-6. I mean, but they had a 4-game losing streak at the end of the season. But you know, that was Michigan, Ohio State, Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most teams are going to lose to those 3 teams, right? And that was a tough stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that's
I don't know about the Terps this year. This scheduling is not, how they opened up, last year. They opened up last year with 4 straight wins, but I mean, they do have the gimme game against Towson, but they got to play at Texas September 2nd. And then, after those out of conference games, they start with Minnesota, Ohio State, Northwestern, and Wisconsin, with 3 of those 4 games on the road. That is brutal.
But let's not take a pass on UCF. UCF from the AAC's pretty. Excuse me, from the
AAC. Yeah.
What are they?
The American.
Yeah. I know you wanted him. I know you wanted him in the MAC, Kevin. I know you wanted him in the MAC.
No, they're not in the MAC.
You did. You wanted them. You campaigned for them to go to the MAC. You don't lie.
You haven't heard the MAC, but I will go with the MAC attack again this year. You know that I'm a MAC attack guy. So anyway, but
you know who else?
No, UCF is.
You know who else is a MAC guy?
Is not as flat. So I'm a MAC guy. You know that. I'm the MAC attack. The MAC attack. I'm going to call my blog the MAC attack this year. I think.
I like I like Ohio. I like the Fighting Soliches. I like them. That's my lone MAC school.
I figured.
Oh my gosh.
Is that a Nebraska Homer fan thing of me to do to like them because he was a former coach at Nebraska? Is that Homer?
No. But no. Let's go back to UCF.
But before we do that, let me
finish second in their division.
Let me bring in our guest for the show. Our guest for the show. Bring him on a little bit late here. He's lead writer for Parks, Sports, and Recreation, and former contributor for TMZ Sports. We'll talk a little bit later about his interview he had this past week with Michael Vick at one of his camps there in Atlanta. Bring on Rob Parks Jr. How are you doing tonight, Rob?
I think you pressed the wrong button. This is actually a first-time caller here.
Oh, it is? How are you doing?
Yeah.
Who do we got?
All right, but I have heard about the show before.
Wonderful. Thanks. Thank you for calling in.
Yes. Yeah, I'm no stranger to the network at all.
Awesome. What's your name?
Lou. I'm from the middle of nowhere, a.k.a. Northern New Jersey.
From Jersey. You got Lou from Jersey. Nice.
Yes. Right.
How's Jersey this time of year?
Well, it's been pretty miserable this year. We've been getting a lot of rain.
The beach is open again, right?
Oh, yeah. That was only temporary.
For most people.
But it's been no day at the beach here.
That's good. That's good.
Yes.
What's your? I know you've been on hold for about 6 minutes. What's your take so far on college football? I know you're up there in Rutgers territory.
Oh, don't go there. Don't go there. We're horrible.
Kevin, we
used to be good.
You have the Scarlet Knights as one of your interesting games opening week.
I know. You know, the problem is, ever since they moved to the Big Ten, they have been, horrible. They never should have with the Big East. At least they were starting to make inroads and compete a little bit. But ever since they went to the Big Ten, they've gotten their butts kicked. And I'm not surprised. Because how do you expect them to compete against teams like Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Minnesota? I can go on with this all night. And you got this Rutgers, like
But Lou, if I give you
belongs, like, in Division II area.
if I give you $45 million a year, I mean, wouldn't you run into a brick wall every single time?
The running of a brick wall was a big mistake.
$45 million a year? That sounds. I wish I made a $45 million a year mistake where $45 million went into my bank account every single year. I wish. How do I sign up for that kind of a mistake?
Well, good, because we're not competitive against the Big Ten. I mean, it's like become a joke.
Yeah, Matthew, this is Kevin. I'm gonna agree with Lou on that. I mean, the money's one thing, but the competitive nature of the Big Ten, but it's not just football, but also basketball, right? I mean,
what's the saying? Quality, not quantity.
Yeah, I mean,
well, yeah, that's the one thing with that, and it's like you were saying, it's like you're gonna have to compete with all those established schools in the Big Ten year after year after year. The Michigan,
so they have to. So you're saying that being in the number one television market, part of the number one television market, that they're going to have to work harder on recruiting, not only better coaches. By the way, Coach Kills is there, good coach, left Minnesota, taking them to multiple bowl appearances. He stole some other coaches away. I think Rutgers is in a better situation than anybody's giving him credit for. I agree that that's an interesting game the first week. It's like Kevin said, but yeah, is it going to be stiff competition? Yes, but it's not like they're not going to have the opportunity to be on TV more than anyone else. The money's there. So because that money's there, they have resources to build better resources, to put more money into recruiting. I mean, they have a lot of guys from upstate New York. If I remember looking at the roster right, they have a lot of upstate New York guys. So they're staying local with the recruiting, but with the money there, they're going to get more guys. They're going to get more of the athletes that they have from Florida. They're going to be able to go into Minnesota, to Michigan, Iowa, Nebraska, get more offensive linemen, which is kind of like the reverse of what we've seen in like the 90s, where basically the top athletes end up going to Iowa and Nebraska. You got the Peters brothers. They're from out there in the Jersey area.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of a switch the role, but because your coaching staff has changed. I think it's, have they sucked in the past? Have they been good in the past? Yeah, that's all relative, ebbs and flows. But they have more of an advantage. It just like if you live in a better neighborhood, you're obviously more affluent, and your kids are going to go to a better school. That's just a given. Are they going to be the best schools at the students at the school? No, but they have an opportunity to have a better education. They're in an academic school to begin with. They're in a number one market. They got more money. It'll come around. We're not going to say that they're going to be a national title contender. They'll never be, but
But Matthew, you don't understand. In New Jersey and New York, nobody watches college sports. It's a pro sport.
They do.
Sport.
They watch Notre Dame.
I do.
They watch Notre Dame.
Yeah, but that's Notre Dame alumni that's there.
Yeah, but Lou, how much? I mean, if you go to a sports bar on a Saturday afternoon in New Jersey, and I've been there. How many college games do you see on the screens? I mean, yeah, it's not like the Southeast or the Midwest where college football dominates. It's pro football, right? It's pro football, and so the fact that Rutgers is in the Big Ten, they get the $45 million or whatever it is they get from the number one TV market, but the Big Ten didn't get was it's not that big a market because it's yes, there are college football fans there for sure. I mean, there are Rutgers fans, there are Syracuse fans, there are people that watch, but there's not that many college football teams in those markets. It's not that. It's different. Okay, it's just different than being in they're watching. If they are, they're watching Penn State, which I admit is a Big Ten team, but they don't consider Rutgers in the same class as Penn State. These are alumni from other areas. They're watching Penn State, right? They're watching Ohio State. They're watching Wisconsin. Yes, those are all Big Ten schools, but it's a different dynamic in the Northeast than it is in the Southeast and Midwest when it comes to in Southwest when it comes to college football, right?
They're on the same planet.
Yeah, it's different. It's just different because I have family in New Jersey. I'm there a lot, and it's just a different. Now you go to sports bar on Sunday. Oh my gosh!
I know.
Giants, right? You got the Giants, you got the Jets, you got the Bills. Even the Bills draw, right? I mean, you got the Eagles. Oh my gosh! Sundays are huge. You go to a sports bar on a Saturday in New Jersey. There's tumbleweeds rolling through the place.
It picks up later.
I've been there. Huh?
It picks up later.
Yeah, at night, right? It's more of a nighttime. It's just, they watch it as a later thing, right? But you go to 11 o'clock in the morning, the early games, in a sports bar in New Jersey on a Saturday.
Still so sorry on Friday night, of course. Of course it's a little slow.
Yeah, it's a different deal. So who do you follow, man? Who's your team?
You mean college-wise or pro?
Well, okay, I'll tell you. When I ask who's your team, who's top of mind?
Okay, I'm a Cowboys and Jets fans for NFL.
Okay.
I am a Penn State fan, though I do follow Rutgers in college football.
Yeah.
For basketball, Knicks and Lakers. For hockey, I'm a Rangers fan and Red Wings and Blackhawks. So most of what I heard was pro teams, right? That's if you have somebody from the South, right? Who's your favorite team? It's really going to be a pro team.
And outside of Penn State, I don't think he has a single team he listed with a winning record.
He named the pro guys first. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it's a different dynamic. It's a different deal, right? And so what you get there is a pro market, and you've got a Rutgers team, and they're the best example. And also the Philly teams too. I mean, if you look at the Philadelphia college football teams, right? I mean, Villanova is FCS. They're not even FBS. Temple's been irrelevant forever, right? Mm-hmm. Penn's Big Ten. They don't really count. They're not even FCS. They don't even participate in the playoffs. And so you start naming the big schools, the big cities in the Northeast. You got nothing. Syracuse is probably the best, and they're up out of they're not even in the major market. They're upstate New York. So I'm just saying from where Lou is, we talk about college football. The guys that they're going, wait, what's going on? Giants Cowboys week 1. Why aren't we talking about that? Why aren't you talking about all this stuff? It's a little bit of a shift. It's a different deal. It totally is.
Definitely. I was thinking though, if you went in from the South, I would probably say there'd be more college. That's college country out there, especially like in Texas and Arizona, Colorado. I mean, because the South they're dominated by college football and high school football too. I mean, they don't call it Friday Night Lights for nothing,
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty college sports dominant in the South. That's that's fair and accurate.
Well, they have a sport in New Jersey that the rest of the country doesn't really do much with, but that's lacrosse. Lacrosse is huge, man. I mean, I was there. I was actually in New Jersey in May, and I went to my daughter's soccer game in Long Island Okay, we drove through the city to Long Island, and I saw more lacrosse than I did even soccer. It was incredible what the popularity of that sport is. And so, now it is popular. Lacrosse is the Atlantic Coast Conference is popular with lacrosse into the Carolinas, Duke, UNC, Maryland. Maryland won the national championship this year. I actually know that. I watched it. Right. You got that, but it's just a whole different sports landscape than what many of us are used to in the South and the Midwest and then in the Far West. It's just a different landscape, right? I mean,
yeah. It's a whole different world.
So you're a college fan. That's got to be a little different, right? I mean, do you guys hang out and watch college sports in the afternoon and Saturday afternoons?
We vary. We vary because we're pro fans as well.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my friends and family are more towards the pro, but I go either direction because I also do a lot of sports podcasting shows, and I have one of my own locally too. And I've been following everything for like the last 40 years. Yes, I'm that old. So I've studied the insides and outsides, and seen the good, the bad. Oh yeah, the ugly.
Hey, question for you.
Yes.
14 college football playoff, or should we go to 8 teams?
I was just about to ask, how many teams do you think should we have? Some might say 8. Some might say 12 or 16. I think maybe 8. I think we'll do just fine because I don't know if you want to run all the way into say mid-January when the NFL playoffs are in full swing. So I think maybe 8 will be just fine.
Yeah, I like 6 or 8. My rationale, these guys both know this because they've heard me before, is
rationale.
I don't think you can continue to.
Oh.
I don't see how you can continue to leave out one of the major conferences. I mean, mine's a business reason. I mean, how do you leave out the Big Ten or
the MAC?
God forbid,
the MAC should definitely be there, Kevin.
The MAC?
Well, yeah, they're the 6th. They got to be in, right? The MAC has to be in. No, but you can't.
It's a running show on the.
Out one of the Power 5 conferences much longer.
Kevin has been a big proponent of the
SEC
MAC conference the last few years, so I find room to take shots.
Yeah, holy Toledo is what I say. There you go. That's right. What I say. So, yeah.
Hey, what about
with this current playoff system? There's just too much money for one conference not be involved with.
Yeah. It's a business reason, right?
That's why we have 40 different bowl games every year now.
Well, speaking of subdivisions in college football, like the MAC, Elijah McGuire is a guy that fans need to not sleep on. He is an exceptional football player. And he's now in a position where he'll be starting for the Jets. I talked to him a little bit when he was down in Tampa for the Shrine game, and he killed it during the Shrine game. I think he was a co-MVP, I think, of the Shrine game this past year. So he has a lot of a wiggle. He's not a very tall guy. I think he says he's listed like 5'9", but I didn't break out a ruler, but I think he was smaller than 5'9". But he's pretty thick. He's fast. He has decent hands, and he has some wiggle. So that's one guy that hopefully Jets fans learn to like him, and he does well this season. It's a fantasy sleeper, probably.
All right, guys. Matthew, Lou, nice talking to you. James, I got to sign off.
All right.
Hope we talk to you next week.
All right, Kev. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Kevin Crest, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Go get his series of books, the P.K. Frazier novels. You can go to Amazon. You can go to most book retailers out there. So go ahead and check those out, and you can check out his blog at kevcrestsports.blogspot.com. Well, James, it's down to you and me, man. I wanted to segue a little bit more into NFL. The Bucks cut, and this is on Hard Knocks tonight. I'm going to go watch it after the show. Robert Aguayo, their second round pick, was it 53rd, 52nd overall pick in last year's draft? They cut him. And that's the big thing on Hard Knocks tonight.
Yeah.
Do you think they cut bait on him too soon, or what? What do you think? What do you think them after just one season with the guy, spending a second round pick?
Man.
That's 3 years guaranteed.
Yeah, that's the thing about it. It's second round pick is that much of a that type of guaranteed contract, and when you make that pick on a kicker, you're gonna have to basically go all in on it, because you're gonna cut them. That means you just wasted a second round pick. So now you're gonna have to.
It wasn't just a second round pick. They gave up 2 picks. They gave up their pick in the third round and a 5th round to move up back into the second round to get him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to see who they traded. Bucks. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look up to see who they traded and who got picked.
I will look that up too.
90 seconds.
Okay, we got about. It's telling me we got about 60 seconds till we get into the overtime segment. It doesn't look like I'm going to do Facebook Live for the overtime segment. I know some of you were waiting with bated breath for me to do that. It doesn't look like I'm going to do that. I will probably do that for a podcast this week, though. So we'll do that later this week, not tonight. The overtime segment will be available for those of you listening on Blog Talk Radio. If you go over to Spreaker.com or download and listen to it on the Spreaker app, or if you head over to YouTube Live on Google Hangouts, you can watch the overtime segment live. If not, just wait an hour and you can listen to it. The podcast version, you can go over to the website. This is my favorite place to go, thechtonsports.com. Click on the listen link in the upper left-hand corner, or you can listen to on your SoundCloud app. You can listen again on the Spreaker app. Go to Blog Talk Radio again. You can listen to it on iTunes, Somos. I don't even know what the hell Somos is. I've never been over there, but I'm told it's put over on Somos. So shout out to Somos. Whatever that is, it's supposed to be there. So if you listen on Somos and you hear it, let me know, because I have no idea. It's supposed to be over there though, and iTunes. So it's all over the place. We kind of scattered it like a little girl scattering crumbs in the woods. We're trying to find our way back. That's all it is. Just putting crumbs all over the place. Pretty sure that's littering. Whatever. Man. But yeah, well, go ahead. Finish what you were saying.
I was actually looking into what happened there with the draft. So the guys that ended up being picked by the Kansas City Chiefs was they had Kavari Russell from Notre Dame there for that 74th overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 4th round, they were able to get another cornerback, Eric Murray from Minnesota. So you have to see if, those 2 guys are still on the roster, for one, and then 2, what the Bucs could have did with those type of picks.
I like Eric Murray. Eric Murray's decent. I can tell you that. Are you sure it was the same Eric Murray? So like
out of Minnesota.
Oh yeah.
University
I
of
got him. I
Minnesota.
got him here. Yeah, I like Eric Murray. He's decent. I think he's like second or third on the depth chart. Be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, you have those cornerbacks out there for the Chiefs anyway with Murray out there. So they have a pretty, deep secondary as it is.
Let's see if I can get there. Depth chart here. Pull up the Chiefs depth chart. Eric probably has it tattooed. I think he has that tattooed on his arm every year. He just whites it out. He does white tat, and then he goes back over and puts it. Probably not, though. He hasn't been on the show in a minute either. But we're back in football season, so we'll probably see some more people back on here. Yeah. Eric Murray. Yeah, he's number 2 on the depth chart, free safety. They got him playing free safety. And that's one thing I said coming out, because he did that a little bit at Minnesota, because they play a 4-3, and he was able to go back, in a free safety in some situations. I mean, he has the speed and the size to do it. So I see how that ended up working out for him. Second season, he's not doing bad. I mean, second on the depth chart, safety with the Chiefs is good. I mean, he's just sitting behind, and Ron Parker, guys. He was an undrafted free agent. He did well. I think he had a decent season last year. I have to go back and look at it. They also picked up. They had the cornerback from Minnesota, who's winning the defensive rookie of the year. Maurice, what was his name? Peters. Marcus Peters. Marcus Peters. Yeah, Marcus Peters is Marcus Peters. Yeah. So former defensive rookie of the year. Yeah, they got a really, really legit secondary. Who did you say the other guy was that they drafted with the 73rd pick or whatever? So there was an defensive lineman.
Oh, that was Kavari Russell. Kavari Russell was another defensive back.
Yeah, he didn't make it. Sorry. he didn't make it. Sorry, Kavari Russell.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he did.
And where is he now?
I don't see him.
I'm gonna look that up. Kavari. How the hell you spell Kavari? ARV.
Yeah, Kavari.
So, is it KRVI?
KEIVARAE.
What? You said KER?
Oh, they say he's playing for the Bengals.
There's no way that's his name. Probably is his name.
Yeah. So after 1 year he's with the Bengals or something like that.
Well, he's on an NFL roster, so that's more than Roberto Aguayo can say.
Yeah, I think
Roberto
so.
Aguayo.
Yeah.
I'll just kind of give. Let me pull that up here real quick. It was an update on the Sports Blotter. Hadn't had a chance to put up. Hadn't had a chance to put it up yet. It'll be up tonight for sure. The toxicology report for Tiger Woods came back, and he had pain, anxiety, and sleep medications, as well as TCH. I don't know what that's all about. That's a free commercial. All right. I do not endorse Geico. Sorry. At least now I know that I can play the sound clips directly from the internet, and they'll come through. So I just learned that right now. It'll work, though I didn't intend it to. You know how much time that saves? Just being able to play a clip online, and I have to download it and cut it and stuff like that. I just play it straight. That's good to know. But yeah, he also had THC in his system when he was arrested on Memorial Day on suspicion of driving under the influence. THC is for the kids that didn't know. That's one of the magical ingredients in marijuana. Let me see here. The urine test revealed, and this is according to CNN, hydrocodone, hydromorphine, 2 opioid pain medications, alprazolam, which I guess is prescribed for anxiety and panic disorders. And obviously seems like a panicky guy. Zolpidem, which is a sedative prescribed for insomnia, so sleep meds. And then there was metabolites of alprazolam and of THC, the active ingredient in marijuana. So, can we say he was doped up? Is that an accurate description of Tiger Woods? Like, he wasn't under the influence.
Yeah.
He was crunk. Like, the only thing he didn't have was liquor. Like, he was basically crunk without liquor. He has uppers. He has downers. He has double downers. He has double dare dog double downers. Like, bro, did he just clear the medicine cabinet? He's like, I'll just take one of everything and smoke a joint. Like, but I don't see Tiger smoking a joint. He looks completely like an edible guy, right? Is it just me? Or does is Tiger Woods look like an edible guy?
Yeah.
He said he had breathing problems. Yeah, it says he was at an increased risk for breathing problems, sedation, coma, and other serious life-threatening side effects. Well, no shit. The fact that he's alive from having the this many hydrocodone, hydromorphine, like, he clearly didn't feel his face at that point. But then said, oh, let me throw in an anxiety medicine. All right. And then a sedative so I can sleep. And let me munch on a weed brownie. Like, this was the direction he decided to go. I want to see the police. I've never seen the police tape of this. I mean, this being said, the way he looks in his mugshot, it's surprisingly good picture. It looks like him in a press interview with his hair messed up and not a polo. You know, it's kind of the look.
It's a picture of him like he's just getting out of bed.
Yeah, it just looks like, what's up? No, I don't want any cookies. And he's pushing a 2015 Mercedes Benz. Is that? Does he buys his vehicles?
I have no idea.
I'm surprised with a 2015 Mercedes Benz. Found him asleep on the roadside in a 2015 Mercedes Benz. He probably wanted to be inconspicuous.
Mm-hmm.
I'll use the old Benz. No one will notice me. Wow. So on Twitter, in June, the golfer stated on Twitter that he was receiving professional help. Now, when he did that at the rehab facility that he did, it was a out-of-state private facility that he went to for rehab. He bought the whole rehab facility, like all the sides that because there's a male side and a female side. He said, "I'm getting fixed. I'm getting better. Give me the whole thing." He bought the rehab. Like, normally people go ball like that, go to rehab, the bar in Vegas, and they buy the bar at rehab, or they rent out rehab to throw a party. He said, I'm going to rent out a rehab facility for my rehab. Like, do they keep the whole staff there the same way? Like, does he get like all 5 therapists, or how does that work?
Mean everybody in the staff just serves him?
Evidently. I mean, everybody else had to be evacuated, had to leave. He bought out the rehab facility. He said, I want all the rooms. It's like,
every one of them. Take everybody out.
Yep. And he looked at the brochure. He said, yep, I'd like the facility. Oh, you want a room? No. All of them. All of what, Mr. Woods? All of the rooms. But there's people in them. I need to get better. Fuck them. I have 6 more majors to win.
He's like, hey,
I have 6 more majors to win. How am I supposed to break records if I'm not? Didn't you see my talks report? I need help. I need all of your help.
Yep.
All of it. I need everyone who works here's undivided attention.
Every single person, from the desk clerk to the janitors, everybody.
The poor souls calling in. They're like, we'd like to check our son into rehab. I'm sorry, we're all full. All full? Yes, we're all full. You just called 2 days ago and you had 20 rooms. I know, but they're all full. How'd you fill 20 rooms in 2 days? Tiger Woods. But he's one person. And he bought all the rooms. You'll have to come back when he figures it out.
Yeah, it's one person, but it's Tiger Woods. So
Tiger Woods. And I get it, though. I mean, a lot of these, like the support groups and stuff in there, like you're open. You're not trying to create a situation so somebody could write a book about your private stuff, private life. You know, I get it. Paparazzi get in there taking pictures of him looking asleep, looking like he's not well rested.
It's crazy. I mean, hey, if you got to do it to try to get back, to try to get himself back, then hey, do what you got to do. But as long as you're able to fully recover, and not have a relapse.
I don't think Nike has dropped him yet. I still think Nike sponsors him. So you know it's bad.
Yeah, I think that was like one of the few. I think that's one of the few companies that still sponsors them.
So Johnny Manziel, you know you screwed up royally. You clearly did stuff that was worse than what Tiger Woods did. Like, obviously he's had a different degree of success in his life, but Nike basically said, it's okay, you lay low and you'll start golfing again, we'll be fine. But he started golfing again like 3 different times, and it was non-competitive. It wasn't competitive from him. So I don't know. But Nike is been right there. Been right there. So we're coming up. I'm working on getting either Zab Judah or Winky Wright on the show next week to talk about Mayweather McGregor on the 26th. Now, Zab's probably going to be tough because he's been sparring against Mayweather, from what I've heard. Now there's rumors that have leaked out that today in sparring, he knocked Mayweather out. James, what sort of validity do you give to these rumors?
I mean, a couple of folks here, like, have asked around in the boxing circles, and they said, like, Zab Judah wasn't even in Las Vegas today. So,
well, that's a significant knockout. Like, if you can knock somebody out and not even be there, then I want to learn how to do that.
Exactly.
That's next level.
And this is given that, remember, the last when Floyd Mayweather was preparing for Manny Pacquiao, Zab Judah was one of those fighters that were in the ring sparring with Floyd Mayweather then. So, meaning to me that after about 2 years, Zab Judah was able to do something to where he was able to knock down and knock out Floyd Mayweather? Come on.
I know. You tell me Zab Judah started finishing fights after his professional career?
No, actually, he had one fight here recently. Actually,
I thought it got canceled.
No. I mean, he recently was aimed against somebody in Trenton, New Jersey, and was able to get the win. And actually, he has a fight coming up in October.
For real.
So.
Well, hopefully we can talk about it. Or maybe you get him over on the Boxing Source radio show. I have some people message me about. We've been updating some of the social media, and yes, there's the CHT on boxing. That's still the cold hard truth on sports. It just leads you to the boxing page. It's the boxing page, but everything that we write for the Boxing Source goes on the boxing page. That's all it is. It's another avenue from the site. So each section of the site will have its own social media eventually. But a couple people were kind of confused by it. Want to break that down. Didn't change anything with the Boxing Source or how we had the Boxing Source on the site. or on the network. That didn't change anything. Follow them both. What else so we got, has anything changed for you as far as the McGregor Mayweather fight? I mean, do you think the stuff that that we've seen for the workouts from McGregor are just outlandish? He's clearly just trolling. Am I wrong?
Yeah. I mean, like I was saying, when the rumors were, going out about the fight, I kind of had it as an exhibition fight, but they were able to have it sanctioned by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. So, I mean, this will just, count as another win for Floyd Mayweather, but it's, basically a moneymaker. So,
yeah,
I mean, he's able to,
it's
generate
listed as
as much money as he can with the guaranteed money. So,
I mean, it's listed as his debut fight. From McGregor.
And I mean, my thing is like that, that's nothing new. I mean, they've had guys that, have had extensive boxing careers go against, fighters that had their pro debut. I mean, it's just that, now since it's Floyd Mayweather, everybody is in such an uproar. I'm like, it's happened before. Multiple times. Notable fighters. So anyone that's like, having a big old uproar about this hasn't really looked into the history of, what's gone on in professional boxing. This is prize fighting. This isn't something where, they have to go all out and do all they can in the ring. That's not what it's all about. It's like I said on my show. The point of boxing is to hit and not get hit. I mean, but this is something where you can't play boxing like Zab Zuda said years ago. You can't play boxing. I mean, it's a very dangerous sport.
Mm-hmm.
And if you put yourself at risk every single time you step in the ring, you got to do what you got to do in order to not be able to have yourself in serious risk of diminishing your health or losing your health in that ring.
Have you started to come on board with what I said, though, as far as this fight being entertaining?
I mean, it'll be entertaining to a certain point. I think, what people are going to be looking out for is if Floyd Mayweather is going to, get a knockout in this fight. And that's pretty much what they're going to anticipate if they're going to, go ahead and see the fight. Me, I'm just looking into, what's going to happen, within the undercards there. I kind of wish that the Sean Porter fight would have been on the
undercard,
on the undercard of the pay-per-view undercard.
I was hoping that Dylan White. I was hoping Dylan White, Deontay Wilder got onto the undercard, because then actually a decent number of people were probably watching that are outside of boxing. See, that's the thing is we'll
probably watch. See, there, what should have happened there was, because you were talking about Deontay Wilder and Dylan White, but the guy Bermane Stiverne is the number one contender to mandatory, and executed his mandatory thing there. So Deontay Wilder can't fight anybody with the WBC title without fighting Stiverne first. So I'm like this, and I've said this here for a while now, or a couple of days now. If I'm Deontay Wilder and you say that you want to have all these big fights, you want to fight these guys, these big fighters, get your mandatory out of the way as soon as possible. That way you are able to have that opportunity.
Or vacate.
To have this thing, vacate.
If you're that badass,
to
just
have this
vacate.
thing linger out as long as it does. Yes, just vacate and then go fight those other guys that are in the rankings there. If you really want that Luis Ortiz fight, vacate the WBC title, then go after Luis Ortiz. And if you beat him, then you're the mandatory for Anthony Joshua. If you really want that Anthony Joshua fight, because otherwise you're just sitting there being stuck trying to deal with Berman Savard with that WBC belt.
I don't know if he's trying to see it. I think that's the thing. He ain't trying to see it.
Yeah, and that's the thing I'm saying. I'm like, here's a guy in Deontay Wilder. Like, you know, before his injuries came up or whatnot, he was somebody that said he liked to be active. He liked to fight like 3 or 4 times a year. Well, now, I mean, he's just getting back, you know, from his injuries, hand injury and shoulder injury. Bicep injury, that is. And he had that fight, you know, against Gerald Washington in February, and here we are 6 months later, and he doesn't have a fight locked in yet.
Gerald Washington went in, I think he won one and lost one since that fight. I think he's won one and lost one. That's what I saw the other day. So,
yeah. And so, like, after that, Wilder,
Dude.
Kind of like talked about everybody, talked about fighting Parker, talked about fighting Joshua, talked about fighting Luis Ortiz or whoever, but
basically
wouldn't say anything about.
So, my dude I had on here the week before last, Steven Nelson, he's basically had like his whole professional career since 7 fights since Wilder fought his last fight. Or his last 2 fights. He's basically had 7 fights in the time that Wilder has fought. He fought twice in December. Like twice. But the thing is, he was in the World Series of Boxing too. Because that's the crazy thing. You fight every week and you don't know who you're fighting. I'm telling boxing fans,
right,
y'all need to get on with the World Series of Boxing. You need to get up on game with it. I'm telling you, it's interesting. You got, I mean, it's not 12 rounds. You got 3 to 5 rounds. It's depending on where they are at in the tournament. I'm telling you, it's interesting as hell because the matchups change based on how the fighters perform. So it's interesting to watch. I'm telling you, man, the World Series of Boxing is there. I think they're about halfway. They just finished up. Yeah, they just finished it. They'll get started up here again before too long. I'm telling you, get right around. The thing that sucks is kind of during football season, but it comes in, I think November is like the end of it or the beginning of it. But once we get around to like March Madness, April, when there's nothing else on, maybe some NBA, a little bit of beginning of baseball, turn on over to the World Series of Boxing. You can watch all of it free. WorldSeriesOfBoxing.com and watch it all. It's telling you, man. I appreciate it because I covered it. Like the year I was in Puerto Rico, but it's fun to watch. I enjoy it. So I don't know. People need to get up on game. What else did you have? What else did you have on the show Sunday?
Well, on the show Sunday, I had a few people here from the Caribbean. I have like a boxing trainer that's here in the DMV area, Floyd Seymour. He was part of the Bahamas national boxing team back in the day, and now he's a boxing and fitness trainer, and he has 2 guys there with him, that are brothers coming out of Barbados. Kobe Soldier Breedy was part of the Barbados national team and is, now a professional fighter, fighting at 10-0. And his younger brother, Jabali Breedy, is a representative there for the AIBA World Boxing Championships that are coming up here in a couple of weeks. So, you'll be able to, see him compete in those championships. That'll be in Hamburg, Germany, here real soon. So I had a radio interview with them yesterday, and also spent some time with them, at Floyd's gym on Saturday, actually.
Are you over in Vegas?
How was that?
I said you're going to be in Vegas.
No, I won't be able to get to Vegas there on the 26th. I don't think I'm going to be part of that madness that's going to be happening out there.
There's tickets available. Only like $3,000, man.
Yeah.
500 for nosebleed, bro.
I'm kind of cool with that. Yeah, I'm kind of cool with that.
I think I'm going to meet Grady at Ducky's. He trying to come through. Hey, let me put it this way: Evan Longoria may not have ever made an all-star, but his restaurant is an all-star. I'm telling you, man, that the food there is bomb. They have buffalo chicken cheese dip. Like they put it in one of those soup bowls. And they like bake on the top crust like an onion, like an onion soup. They bake on the cheese on the top, and then they serve it with Frito scoops. It's crack, man. The deviled crab on point. Hummus is on point. Like if it's not a Greek restaurant, I'm usually not talking about hummus, but their hummus, dog, is on point. Ducky's is a spot. Plus the waitresses over there are pretty nice. Exceptional. They're hardworking. Put it that way. Hardworking staff. However, for that Canelo fight, the last one, the guy that was the promoter, worst ever. Douchebag. I'll put it that way. I'll leave it there. I'm not, I mean, you know me. There's not many times where I want to just punch somebody in their throat. Like I wanted to like judo chop some Bruce Lee style, like to his throat. That's what I wanted to do. Like I wasn't even drinking or nothing. I just he made me that upset. I don't really get upset ever. So I'm a pretty chill guy. Crazy people. But we got about 20 minutes left in the show. Rob, I got a message though about 20 minutes ago. So people have an update. Rob Parks is rescheduling for next week. So just a little update on that. I didn't know he had a new site. He did what Kevin did and went and did a blog, his own blog. So that's cool. But have you been watching any of the preseason games?
No, I haven't actually. I've been able to catch them, especially the ones during the weekdays on Thursday and Friday. So I haven't been able to, check all that out.
I've caught bits and pieces here and there, only the first half of them, and I'm just saying, like, I turn on, I watch it because my wife's used to me just watching a whole football game, like in front of the TV, Like, leave me the hell alone. Stop. Why are you asking me questions right now? I'm watching this. It's like I will listen to whatever you have to say any other time, but I'm watching this, and I'm noting, and I'm conversating with people about what's in front of me. Like, unless you want to talk about the game, please don't change the subject. But I watch for like 2-3 minutes, and I'm like, all right, what you want to watch? News? All right. And she's like, it's over? I was like, no, it's not even halftime yet. She's like, you're done? I was like, it's preseason. What do you want me to watch? I was like, everybody at this point probably is not even going to be at a roster here in the next 2 weeks. Like, who am I watching for? For that Arena League guy? Somebody playing they have that they're working on that new league, the American Flag Football League. I heard in an interview with Michael Vick. I'll get over with Rob. I'll get that. We're gonna get that stuff up on the website. We're gonna get that stuff.
Right.
We're gonna get those Mike Vick interviews. I'm gonna get those Mike Vick interviews. I'm gonna get them up on the website. I will. Watch. Let's see. But other than that, I don't have too much else. I mean, we're in preseason right now. I know a lot of people were super excited about Mitch Trubisky balling out. And listen, I'm just going to explain something to people real quick. It's preseason. In preseason, you go out and you're playing what you practiced. You're trying to look at situations. You're not scheming. There's no scheming in the preseason. Nobody's trying to look at what the other team is offering and trying to scheme against it. They're literally just going out there and calling some vanilla plays because they're evaluating the talent that's there. They're trying to find out who they keep on the roster and who they're getting rid of. And they need to see the core of these players. Is he going to be good enough in our system? Do we keep him? And for about half of the guys that come to camp, the answer is no. And then once you're released from a team, then you can get invited to be on the practice squad. But that's the dangerous part too, because if you barely make the team, that's the thing, is like they try to keep stuff on the low. See, that's funny. I mean, would you want to see the Patriots on Hard Knocks? Is that a team that you'd want to see on Hard Knocks? Or what's the team that you want to see on Hard Knocks the most?
Who, me?
Yeah. Yeah, you.
Ooh. Oh, man. For now, either I'd say the Carolina Panthers or somebody like the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Because I think
But
the rule,
Pittsburgh Steelers probably would be a team to do that.
because you'd have to miss the playoffs for 2 seasons.
Antonio Brown would be down with it.
Oh yeah, I mean he's trying to be on it anyways. Like,
Yeah.
he has his own Hard Knocks. It's called a selfie. Like, he'll just. I think if he had the option, that he could just record all of his record a little show, and have a camera crew with him. I think he would. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I went back to Tiger Woods, man. That article. Oh my God, he was. Oh my God, that is so much. It's a lot of consumables. Oh my goodness. But yeah, that's all I got for this week. Is there anything else you wanted to add, or what are we going to be looking for on Sunday?
Oh, on Sunday we're reviewing the upcoming fight. Well, that's going to be coming up this Saturday. So we're going to see who's going to be the winner of that super lightweight championship fight between Julius Ndongo and Terrence Crawford, and just go over the fight there. So that's going to be the talk on the next episode of the Boxing Source Radio Show.
All right, look forward to that. Steve Nelson, he's on that undercard too. I got him winning by knockout. I mean, he's had 8 fights and won 7 by knockout. Kind of like seem to that's the way it goes. So, all right, man. So people be sure to tune in Sunday. I don't know if the guys will be in tonight or tomorrow night for Take This L. That's one of our more sporadic shows. It's typically Wednesdays from 8:30 to 11:30 right here on the Go Long Media channel on Blog Talk Radio. But you can listen to this show and all the shows over at the CHT on sports.com. Just click on the listen link in the upper left-hand corner. And you can listen to them all there on the Spreaker app, SoundCloud, Blog Talk Radio, Somos. James, we got to figure out what the hell that Somos is. Evidently, our stuff's going over to Somos.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that is. So we're going to have to...
I don't know what it is either.
Have to figure that out. So thanks again to Kevin Kratz for being in tonight. And Lou in Jersey was a pleasant surprise. I think that's my bookie. I think he's just checking in on me. I think that was my bookie checking in on me. I don't know. Maybe was that your guy? Is that the guy that you place your bets through? Lou in Jersey? You drive up to Jersey to put in your bets? James?
Nah, I don't go there.
You're like, I got a G. You're like, I got a G on money. Like, people are literally planning some of their retirement on Mayweather. Like, they're putting, like, 85% of the money is on Mayweather. But the bigger bets are on McGregor. Yeah, that's what it was. There was I forget. I have to go back and look at it. There was a ton of small bets on McGregor because you put in $100, did you win like 1,200 or something like that? But Mayweather, I mean, you put in $100, you win 250. So, something like that. I mean, you still make money. So, this fight is going to be.
Well, I think one of the Maloof brothers put in $880,000
on who?
On Mayweather.
Oh, I was going to say. Oh, if that kind of money went on Mayweather, then. I mean, we think we know what's going to happen. We're pretty much.
Yeah.
You heard somebody put $880,000.
It's not like it's an overwhelming thing. I mean, it's not for the Maloof brothers.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, they what is it? They on the Palm and the Sacramento Kings, so.
Oh, I guess they're good. They're good. But, all right, man, that's going to do it for the show tonight. Thank you for listening in. We'll be back next week here on the Go Long Media channel. Go and subscribe on YouTube. I see you right there on YouTube. Click on the subscribe button down low, or there might be one somewhere over here. Watch the videos over on the side. and enjoy it. But I'm out.